Hello everyone, and welcome back to 5-9 Gaming. Today, we're going to fully analyze both Zethia and Bahamut, how they fare in current content, and how exactly you should be using them. Let's start with Zethia first. She's a very special adventurer since she only has a skill at her disposal, that being a 5-hit 2000% damage multiplier with automatic recharge. Unfortunately for her though, this automatic recharge is incredibly slow since it takes almost 30 seconds to fully charge up her skill. However, the first two times are going to take about 5 and 10 seconds respectively, allowing for a small burst period at the start of the fight where you can use double skill in the span of about 15 seconds. I strongly suggest you to only use this skill in case a big burst damage is needed, like Kaion's Crushing Cataclysm or Asura's Mask Change Orb. Not only that, but Zethia has a unique attack combo much like most of the recent Gala units. Her combo is quite powerful, and it's going to be your main way of attacking the enemy. Not only that, but she has a special dodge that lets her attack and dodge at the same time. So it allows you to keep your combo going from where you left off before dodging. This is quite useful since most of her powerful attacks are far down the chain of combos. Moving on to her passive, she's able to summon a fully fledged version of Bahamut to attack with her. His mods are exactly the same as the summonable version, with the only exception being that this Bahamut requires 4 full combos to launch a level 3 skill instead of 2. Having her Bahamut constantly out allows her to have incredibly high stable DPS, with the caveat being that she has no real burst options. We'll talk about why this is a big deal later on in the video. Also, as a small bonus, having Bahamut summoned powers up some of Zethia's standard attacks. It's not a huge increase realistically speaking, but it's still a nice bonus nonetheless, gaining a few 100% damage multipliers throughout the whole combo. Thanks to her Providential Blade passive, she also gets a critical damage amp every 5th and 9th attack in her standard combo, with a maximum team amp of 1, which means that throughout the whole fight, your team is going to have a 20% critical damage buff. As cool as that is, it's very hard for me to understand exactly why they gave her this, of all things. She has no real crit rate in her kit whatsoever. Unless you're running a dagger in your team, you're going to be stuck with 12 to 14% critical rate, thanks to the Flurry Devastation Prince. So while yes, it's still a cool thing to have, it's hard for me to call it an actually great passive considering how low her crit rate is, and how small the buff is in practice. Lastly, she has double affliction resistance as per usual for Gala units. As far as playstyle goes, you're just going to spam her normal attacks and nothing else. Her skill resets your combo, so you'd be better off using it only after you're done with your 9th attack and when some burst is needed, like I said earlier. Regarding Bahamut, since he takes a while to complete his 4 combos needed for his skill, you want to summon him only after you've reached about 80 to 90% Dragon Gauge to make sure he doesn't respawn before launching his skill. Also, to max out his skill uptime, it'd be better to make him despawn slightly after you see him launching his skill or when you get his amp buffs. But that's up to you, whichever you want to be on the lookout for. Regarding her print setup, you're going to want to run Flurry Strength skill damage since it also affects Bahamut's skill, Flurry Devastation, and depending on your team, 1 or 2 Affliction Punishers or a Strength double buff if you have Patia. Regarding the Sinister Dominion Prince, the classic skill damage plus 20% and Sword's Psalm combo is going to be more than fine for her. Also, for the love of God, do not run her with Arsene or Katsith. Give her Bahamut or Reborn Nidhogg in his absence. Unfortunately for her, she won't be able to benefit that much from Flash of Desperation outside of Nihil, since most of her DPS comes from standard attacks and not skills. Now, I want to talk about her place in the meta and the utility she might bring to a new player or a mid-game player, but unfortunately for all Zethia players out there, I really doubt she's going to be meta anytime soon, unless Surtur has some surprises in store for us that heavily favors combo-based characters. Nor do I think she's really going to be that great of a main carry unit for newbies, with the reason being that she really doesn't bring any utility to the team. Her lacking either Poison or Shadow Blight means that your other DPS outside of Nihil, assuming a Healer Grace Patia comp, or 2 other DPS units in Nihil are going to have at least one of the 2 to not lose a huge chunk of overall DPS in the entire team. Not having dispels is also a huge deal since Kaion requires frequent dispels due to his shield, and her lack of a powered up Force Strike is also quite uncomfortable since it means that breaking Kaion in his Berserk phase might prove itself to be a little difficult. Not only that, but due to the fact that she lacks any real burst outside of a somewhat weak S1, and a really hard to time Bahamut skill means that you'll need multiple breaks during Legend Kaiyan to take him down for good. And it might also prove hard to surpass the DPS check during Asura's Sinister Dominion if you don't have enough STR orbs on you. And to top it all off, while her DPS is astonishingly good, it's nothing completely out of this world, making justifying her on a team even harder, since you have a handful of other options with similar DPS but far higher utility like Alberius, Joker, or Summer Leonidas, to name a few. One thing I'll say though she has really going for her is her co-ability, since an extra 10% multiplicative STR is always great to have, and as of now, she's the only real good option Shadow has for Blades. Moving on to Bahamut, he offers 120% buff to the strength of Shadow Adventurers with a 50% innate dragon prep and a 100% extra dragon time built in, with the drawback of not allowing your entire team, be it solo or co-op, to have more than 50% dragon prep, effectively nullifying stuff like Alberius' passive or Ramiel's aura. As a last drawback, Bahamut requires a full dragon gauge to shapeshift instead of the usual 50%. But we'll talk more about that in a bit. Damage-wise, this aura is going to be about 5% better than Reborn Nidhogg's aura, while losing by a decent margin to Arkhice and a sizable margin to Cat Sith. Although this only applies to skills in their case, so units like Galachel or Zethia are still going to prefer Bahamut over them, while a more skill-heavy oriented character might prefer the likes of Arkhice, or especially Sith, if you're going to play with Curse of Nihility. His dragon form is incredibly strong, having a 6,200% damage multiplier over the course of an entire standard attacks combo, and a multi-level skill that gets even more powerful the more attacks you do. Each full combo you do will make the skill get stronger, up to a maximum level of 3. At level 1, he's going to deal 2,050% damage. At level 2, it gets upgraded to 3,096% damage, while also giving a team defense amp. And finally, at level 3, Bahamut is going to deal 4,860% damage, while granting a team strength and defense amp. For obvious reasons, you're going to want to use his level 3 skill since it's not that hard to get to and deal an enormous amount of damage. You should use one of the other 2 levels only if your shapeshift is about to run out, and for some reason you just can't get to level 3. The last part of Bahamut's kit is that, much like Volk, he has a Dragon Strike at his disposal, which is an attack that can be launched by holding the screen for a second or so. In his case, it's nothing amazing, really. 4 meteors of 272% damage each descend from the sky, hitting an enemy they can find on the map. Mostly useful during Kaiyan to destroy orbs around the map. Otherwise, you'd be better off using your standard combo to attack the enemy. As far as playstyle goes, the only downside this Bahamut has to offer is that he's not the greatest of choices for dragon users that rely on Dragon Claws to get going, since he stacks half as fast as any other dragon. But at the same time, the fact that he requires double the dragon gauge as other dragons means that he'll work best on dragon users, since they'll be able to shift into him more often than other adventurers, essentially shifting their builds from dragon rampers to DPS units with an extremely powerful dragon to use as a huge burst option. And from testing, I can safely say that it works just as well, if not better, as a build due to how powerful Bahamut's dragon form is. It's also worth noting that the first shapeshift is only going to require a buildup of 50% dragon gauge, since he has a 50% dragon prep built in. Meaning that for the first transformation, at least he costs as much as any other dragon while offering a far more powerful form. Meaning he'll fare far better in shorter events, since his 100% dragon gauge will be effectively nullified by the fact that by the time you reach 50% dragon gauge a second time, the fight will already be over. Regarding who you should play him on, I'd say to prioritize units that rely on STR dragons like Galachel or Zethia, and equip dragons like Sith or Arkhice on any other DPS you have on the team, if they are skill-based units. Now, in case you don't have STR-based units and have to decide between him or Arkhice, I'd say they're pretty equal choices, with Bahamut having a slight edge due to insanely high burst potential, thanks to his dragon form. However, if Cat Sith is an option outside of Nihil, it's very hard for me to recommend Bahamut over her, due to just how powerful a 180% multiplicative skill damage buff is, especially when paired with a Flash of Desperation build, further amplifying their skill damage. The only exception to this really is in case you can't maintain Sith stacks efficiently because your character spams way too many skills to keep up, and the fight lasts quite a while, or you need help to break Kaiyan's Berserk phase, in which case Bahamut becomes better due to him granting an STR buff to help with 4-strike damage, and not having any kind of restriction to his buffs. And that about wraps up our analysis of the new anniversary units for Dragalia Lost. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and leaving a comment down below. And for more things Dragalia Lost, make sure to subscribe to 59 Gaming Mobile. Thanks for watching!